so I will call the meeting to order. Ask the clerk to take roll, please.
Carroll.
Here.
Brewer. Marty.
Unmute Marty.
Hey there.
Marty. We'll see if he comes back. He's on the screen. Glassburner.
Yeah.
Gets the ball, talks it, get it there.
Frank.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the right before the right spike of Pioneers gets it. Watch his left hand coming through. Boom, gets the base. Pioneers is not even there yet. So give the ace on
Marty.
It says slider to top.
All right, so Steve, are you on Williamson?
Yes.
Okay, so you have Carroll, Glassburner, Turk, Frank, Williamson.
Right.
Okay, and Marty is on, he just can't hear us.
Okay.
Well, he did unmute there.
Yeah.
Huh.
All right, so we do have a quorum. And are we in compliance with the open meetings law?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the meeting is properly known.
We have before us a 12-point agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Glassburner, second by Frank to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Our agenda is approved. We also have the minutes from the last meeting, which was back on June 11th. Any questions, comments, corrections to those June 11th meeting minutes? Hearing none, I will declare those to be approved. Item 6 on our agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to comment tonight? Have anyone?
I'll make a quick comment.
Mr. Manning, go ahead.
Quite some time ago, I had people approach me about the campus, interested in buying it, well, parts thereof. One being Denny Jacks, one being Brian Jones. So, Brian, which my son-in-law works for him, so I know it pretty well. It broke down somewhere between here and Florida with a semi, but he said, when it comes time, when you make up your mind, I still have interest in at least some of the buildings out at the campus. So we do have some options.
Good to know. All right, any other public comment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Brewer.
I'd like to make a public comment, if I may.
Okay.
It seems to me that we've been in negotiations with the university a long time. Those kind of stopped. I'm not sure why. Well, because they wouldn't negotiate, that's why. But now I see that the $2 million is tied to us signing off forever. That kind of rankles me the wrong way. I don't like that.
I would observe that you are not alone in that feeling.
All right. So we better
That is
get,
something we'll have an update on in the meeting today, Marty.
all right, we better get it on our agenda then for action maybe sometime.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. And the first one is a review of the Venture Architects Facilities Assessment findings, which was in our folder for this meeting once you got it updated and were able to access it. No,
website, I first.
it's, yeah, website is much easier to get it.
So were all of you aware of the assessment? Do you have any questions based on this? We will be, Venture has asked for dates, so they will come back and do a more in-depth review for this committee and go over the evaluation tool that they have and talk to us a little bit further. But they wanted to know dates that would work so that we can give that to them. They could not come this evening. We had already set the meeting. They could not come this evening. But they are more than willing to do that and do want to do that. And then we also have the space needs piece yet that we haven't even addressed. And that was also part of our original RFP. So with that being said, unless you have specific questions about this finding, or if you have specific questions, I would take
It's the same as a presentation, right?
correct. It's the
No
exact
updates,
same thing.
Yeah.
No.
Mr. Carroll.
loads of questions, but I'll try to limit them to just the report. You know, they had these rough numbers for renewal and for replacement. I would like to ask them if we can drill down into those numbers and understand the basis, what that means. I understand what replacement means, but I mean in terms of renewal. And then also, at some point, I think we ought to talk about options in between renewal and replacement. In other words, if we say this building is worth keeping, but we're gonna modify it to do this instead of that, that could be an intermediate cost. And so I'm not saying we're going to, but I just wanna get it on the table. It's a possibility.
And so to that, yes, they can drill down. What they did for public consumption and because of time constraints, it was already a very long meeting. They did very general overviews, but all of this information can be drilled down upon and can be further explained with the utilization of that tool. From what I have seen, they've shown me pieces of the tool, you can drill down on the life left on a window, the useful life, or how far past its life expectancy it is. So they can really get a very good picture overall of the exact kind of cost. But the other thing is the renewal, as they said too, they were looking at very specific things. Certain buildings couldn't even be modified to make the bathrooms accessible. It would require a complete addition to be able to do that. So those kinds of costs, I don't know that they're gonna have a real drill down number, but they'll have approximate costs. So they can do that. And it's time consuming, but it's not.
The one that went in the two.
So that's as far as that goes. And then the second part was what?
Well, just the fact that we may at some point say we want to do more than renewal, but not replacement.
Okay. Yes. And they actually, so they do have prepared some suggestions already. Some potential possibility for, could this be modified? Could it not be modified? What would that look like? I will tell you that based on these numbers, the possibility of renovation or repurposing for many of those buildings is not advised, basically, because the cost to do a lot of this would be more than it would be to build the building. But again, those are discussion points that I think you as a committee could have with them and say, okay, this building, we are more interested in keeping. What would that look like? And I think they can absolutely do those things.
It would be nice if we were able to, before our next meeting, maybe not, but to be able to access all that information through the portal that they have for clients. And yes, I talked to Kyle a little bit about it, and he sent me the link to the vendor software, but it's just their general website, not our data. And it's possible that would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's what they want to do is come in and explain to you all, okay, this is how you can utilize it. This is what it looks like. This is, because it's a fairly complex tool. So I think to get the most out of it, I'm sure that's what they're kind of envisioning. As I stated initially, when they were doing the presentation for the public, they were utilizing that tool and drilling way down into stuff. And I said, if you do that for every building, we're going to be there for like half a day. We need to condense it down a little bit and leave that really deep dive to the committee and the board to look through and make decisions on. So there is that. What I think you have more.
I do, but I wanted to make sure I understood what scope that we contracted with and what is remaining. In other words, we've had this presentation of the status. I don't recall whether we had asked as part of the original contract with them to.
What did they put Ashby in for?
Marty, you're not muted.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Where was I?
Scope of
Again, some proposed solutions or new utilization or whatever development ideas, is that part of what we contracted, or is that gonna be additional? That's what I'm not.
I actually just reviewed this today because there was another county asking what we've done and how we've done it. So I wanted to make sure I was giving them the correct information. So what we engaged them for was the facilities assessment, was the space needs analysis, and some suggestions for future use. And so in my conversations with them, the space needs assessment is ready. So that is a piece that we will have a meeting to present to both the board and, or the committee and the department heads, because I know they're anxiously awaiting those results as far as, you know, what does that look like? And that then plays into their future recommendation. And they have a few scenarios planned or that are presentable. Again, they understand our financial barriers. So I think what they would recommend we do and what we can actually do are two very different things. And that's where I think the decision-making is going to come in and the options, you know, and that's where I think you as a board will then have to guide those decisions. And say, you know, we're interested in this, but we're not interested in this, or we know this isn't feasible now, but what can we do in the interim? And what do you want that to look like? And then two, if we were to decide to go further and actually do something, I do believe we would be in a situation where another RFP would be required. So I think those are all things to think about as we move forward with, you know, all these variables.
Then I have a comment. This is a general comment, it's happened a lot, but I'm gonna bring it up specifically to this committee, and that is how we file our documents and how we organize the information we have. I know we have a contract venture, but I don't know where it's at. Be nice if in the folder for our committee, we could get all the documents organized in a folder or two, so that I don't have to go look in months and years in the past for stuff, because I wanted to look at something. And so, but that same general issue I have with a lot of the stuff on our iPads, that we need to improve how we file things so they're easier to find.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's your job, I'm
No.
just, this is a general.
We do have a contract folder, though. Derek and I are pretty meticulous about maintaining contract, but
There's a contract folder, correct?
RFP documents are all in there and in the prior meeting,
But that's what I'm trying to say.
Is that something we can access?
it
It's
should be there. I mean, it was there before. So if it's not there now, then I'm wondering, where did it go?
yeah, the RFP, the actual contract venture, even the proposals from the other AE firms, they're somewhere. And I'm just saying that if,
Yeah, if they're not in the folders, that's interesting.
So under
I don't know
admin
what kind of-
documents, there's a folder called RFP, but it doesn't have.
that is something totally different.
I don't see any other folder.
This is the conversation, maybe not this committee meeting.
Well,
Yeah.
No, but
Yes,
but
by the-
there is, if you go to 2023, the campus configuration folder under the year 2023, there's a file labeled RFP, and if you click on that, it has all those.
And Derek, what I'm trying to say is, I have to go back month by month by month looking for stuff. I think there should be a different way to organize files, so that if they're specifically about this issue, they're also filed in a place where I don't have to go back months, years earlier to find what I'm looking for. I won't remember where I saw it.
For a project like this, that's going to be ongoing for a period of time, it would seem to make sense to have a folder that we know where it is. We don't have to go back by years to find
Even if
where.
we're duplicating some of these
Yeah,
documents.
and it would have the relevant documents that we're still dealing with, the findings, you know, maybe whatever archival documents that we had, you know, the last courthouse plans that we had from 10 years ago or whatever it was when that firm came in, that kind of stuff, just all in one place so that we can easily access it as we're going through the process of digesting all this other.
I will have to ask Barb how that
Yeah.
work with your iPads, because that's the thing, all of us have stagnant folders, we can go in, we can just click on the folder and all the information is there.
Right.
So I'm wondering if it's an issue with your iPads
Probably is.
too. Can we do that sort of thing?
Right.
Which makes sense, and I guess I didn't realize you can't just do that, so.
There's one here called courthouse design plans that's just in the Richland County folder, and that's got some of the old stuff in it, which is cool. But if we had a folder at that same level under Richland County, that was, there's one here for radio project, have a similar one for
Okay,
whatever we decide to call this after campus.
I
reconfiguration.
will work with MIS to see what we will do to figure out how then, we can deposit those into just a folder so that you don't have to go back and look
It's a higher level folder that's there regardless of whether we're considering it this year or in
For example, the admin documents one is useful if it were updated, I mean, because I frequently go there to look and see like, okay, does this have, whether it be board rules or whatever it might be, but I don't know how frequently that actually gets updated.
I guess my concern is just that if we have, for me, it's the committee info and drive. I know we all probably have different letters, so I don't think they're all the same. But that committee info is literally what's the mechanism that's used to upload these things to the packet for MIS, right? So we upload everything in there, we mean, say, upload the packet. I mean, if we're wanting to literally create a dump file that's campus reconfiguration stuff, that would have all of these documents in there, we can simply make a folder that says campus reconfiguration and dump all those documents in there. But my concern then is that now we're gonna have the same folder with two different documents, and what if one gets updated and one doesn't, and we're using the N drive as the way to kind of organize how the website pushes out that committee meeting stuff. We could dump all those into another file called campus reconfiguration that it's gonna have the same stuff as your file. It wouldn't be, organized, but we can dump stuff in there.
Well, and that's
That
why
would help,
you need to
but-
talk to Barb and see what kind of snags we're not thinking about. But
Yeah.
just in general, how we file information, I think it's not working.
And if you're accessing it through the county network on a drive, you mentioned N drive, that doesn't mean anything to us on it.
Right.
So, that's a different access.
And that, I think that's part of the barrier here is that with the way we see information and the way that we can access it is much more organizable
Yes.
than I think the way that you all are able to see and access it.
Right.
Which will then also lead into the discussion that we're going to have next week about computers versus iPads for county board members. Because we are having these issues where it is difficult sometimes to access information. So, that's to be determined, but it's a relevant discussion then, because we want everyone to be able to access all the information that they need and or want.
I guess even if it was under the campus reconfiguration or whatever it's gonna be called, if there was a folder that's had contracts and RFPs, wouldn't have to be under the admin necessarily, but it would be.
The way it's organized, though, those folders live under here. You go 2024, post reorg.
And
No.
then,
Right,
right,
if it was at the top level, like the folders that say, where those year folders live, there, you scroll down and then you've got admin documents, you've got courthouse design plans, a folder at that level. So that we wouldn't have to go to 23 or 24 or
Right.
25.
Take back.
here that was.
Yeah.
It'd be helpful.
I mean,
Okay.
which committee it was filed under. Some things get put under executive finance, some are in county boards, some are in a specific standing committee.
Right.
And it gets hard to find.
Yeah, for that meeting that they're uploaded for, it makes sense. Just try to go back and find it later.
Yep.
Becomes huge.
Okay.
On this discussion, with your computer, are those files a lot more easily searchable?
Yes.
Because I think that that's one of the difficulties.
Yeah,
is it's
they're
like
very
you can't
searchable.
I mean, this
search
is, so you have this right here. If you click on, here's your committee folders. Everything that's gone through campus reconfiguration is all there.
See, that would be
All the
a point
documents.
in favor of a computer.
And this is, this is the mechanism we're using to upload all these
Yeah.
documents. So as I went into here's anything campus reconfiguration is all there with the first meetings and stuff. There's a folder called reference documents.
That's where all those documents that you
Yeah.
all are talking about live.
Yep.
They're all there.
And it has
And they're in one place for
Right,
us
for
already.
us.
And that's where there's that's the disconnect is what we're seeing. We're like, what do you mean? It's all there. Well, for you all, it's not. So that helps.
This may seem like a sidetrack, but I'd like to get off the right foot.
No, that makes,
Yeah.
and as we said, I mean, they're all there for us. So that's where it's different because you all don't see the same thing that we see. So that's, we were just having this discussion with Barb earlier about information sharing from, you know, places in the county with different servers. So this is yet another piece to that discussion. So,
And this could go across other projects, like the radio project or anything else. that
well,
project
exactly,
across.
because how long have we spent trying to get you
Yeah.
that information? And that's been a challenge for sure. So, so yeah, okay. We have some marching orders on that. We will check it out. Other questions regarding this piece?
I just had a quick question. I can't remember in our budgeting, did we budget anything for heating, cooling, maintain the buildings before we make a decision what we're gonna do with them?
Yes, we have money budgeted.
How much about did we budget?
We have 80,000 that we put in the budget for, utilities. It's maintenance utilities, whatever, because we've got, you know, a young man that's been mowing out there this summer, obviously. That's gone in there, any minor repairs, things like that. But there was also some from the prior year. So we have
We do have a budget for it.
we do, but as you saw from the bills that we have, it goes quick. It goes very quick, with the volume of the costs out there. But we did get some clarification on that today, which was super helpful. Okay, any more on this piece of okay. So then, based on this, I think we have, you know, other discussion points, you know, on this facilities assessment finding. We have some things that we really need to be considering. Winter is coming, sounds like Game of Thrones, but, and, you know, what do we want to look into and what do we want to do with said buildings? And, you know, as it sits right now, we have extension out in Melville Hall. All of the other buildings are not occupied and not being utilized. So I think that's a big discussion point. We have a lot of items out there. I know we have needs across the county. People need desks, people need chairs, and there's a whole mess of stuff out there. We've been very judicious with letting things leave there at this point. We haven't done much of that, but it's to the point now where, you know, we should be thinking about what are we going to do? You know, we've identified some items, podiums that will be great for courthouse security, a couple of desks that'll work to have our public kiosk for the law library and the state document system that we, you know, so we can take that and put it downstairs and that makes sense. I know there are a couple of departments that have chairs that are worn out and rather than buy new, can we utilize something from out there? But we haven't had that discussion at this committee level.
Mr. Carroll.
It's time for the inventory.
That was my question too. I mean, where do we start without?
We need to do the inventory.
Yeah. Seem to be getting a handle on what exactly we have is gonna be important. We got the building inventory, now we need the contents inventory.
Right.
There was one fellow that came to one of the meetings, I don't remember his name, but he wanted to make a point that there's a lot of it,
Brendan
Brendan
Federally.
and so let's do it, let's do the inventory, and I have no idea what's out there.
So that's gonna be the next question. How do we propose to do that?
That's a very good question.
Because I can tell you right now, none of our staff has time for an undertaking of that magnitude.
It's huge magnitude. So is there money available to hire someone to do it? There are companies that do business inventories all the time. Every year, they come in with 3 or 4 people, they go through an entire business for tax purposes, and they inventory, tag, identify. And there's companies out there that do it all the time.
Sure.
Do we have the money for that, though?
I have no idea what that cost would look like. I
Yeah, I
guess
don't know
we
either.
would,
That's something we can-
is that another RFP situation where we have to put out a request for proposal and get bids for, or, you know, and solicit.
It depends how much it is.
Right, right.
Here, I was thinking I'd get a clipboard and volunteer to go out there.
Oh,
But-
you have no idea.
That might take you.
But my point is that these inventory calculations that you're talking about, do we need anyone with special expertise to understand it? I don't know.
Suppose that depends on what they're looking at.
Right.
If you're looking at lab equipment, yeah, they probably need to understand that stuff to know what it is, what its usability might be. If it's a table, well, most people can figure out a table.
Yeah, but the table, what size? Is it collapsible? I mean, those things are gonna be important to know when we have.
I would say Brandon Federally might be a great resource for the science building stuff.
Dennis
He had
Theory
worked out there
used
so
to work
long.
for a company that did that. Dennis controlled it too.
Can we at least look into what that might cost or whether we need our?
Yeah. Get an idea of, and I don't know that we need I suppose there's some wiggle room as far as what level of specificity we get with the inventory.
Yeah.
We need to know, okay, there are 16 chairs. We don't need to know serial numbers. That's
Well,
what-
right, and it, I mean, I guess my question is from now until then, if somebody needs a chair, so are we gonna tell county employees they need to buy a chair rather than being able to go out and retrieve one from the campus? I mean,
I don't know.
And we don't know him.
because that seems like an unnecessary expenditure at this point, as long as we log what we removed from the campus. And track that, but that's just me, I mean.
And are we prioritizing our needs internally first?
But again, how do we, I mean, it'd be good to have an inventory so we even know what you have to utilize rather than just going out there.
Yeah, I suppose.
Shuffling through.
Okay, I need a chair. Well, do we know how many there are in the buildings they're in? Or do
How
we
many
spend
are
them on shopping
desks,
or,
how many
you
are?
know,
It's all anecdotal right now.
yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, there are immediate needs that are had right now, so, you know, that's why I'm posing this question.
Do we actually, at this point, truly own the property? Everything that's out there, the UW has blocked and said there's nothing else there.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that
Yes,
there's no hooks in anything.
nope, you know,
Okay.
and which also brings us to the point on the grant funding, but.
Right.
But at this point, yes, everything that they left, what their exact words to us were, because we said, okay, you know, when they said, are there items you would like? We said, how would you like us to relay to you what we would like to keep? Or is this an all or nothing situation? And their response was, it's an all or nothing situation. So whatever they wanted, they took before July 1. And since that time, you know, the Alumni Association, obviously, and the foundation had things, and we have continued to work with them to ensure that they, and the Historical Society, have gotten things that they felt were relevant. And we still do have some items in the costume area, I believe, that belong to the Community Players Theater. We will allow them to go in there and access what is theirs and make sure that that gets removed.
So-
Beyond that, everything else does belong to.
Is there any, and not knowing the volume of stuff, it'd be nice to get it all in central location. One, locations is probably more realistic. You know, there's no reason in having stuff in the classroom building and some of those other buildings, if it can be brought to a central location, we can then be,
I don't know where you would fit it.
okay, that was my question.
It's a large volume of stuff. In the classroom building, they did consolidate, you know, some chairs and some podiums and things into just specific rooms. In the Melville Hall area, they did consolidate some of the technology stuff. In the library, they have kind of a collection of some of the technology stuff. But I mean, this is, you know, chairs, computers, desks, tables, lab equipment. It's all where it lay pretty much when they vacated. And there's still stuffed animals, or not, you know, like not toy stuffed animals, but stuffed animals.
Taxidermy.
Taxidermy, yes.
Critters.
tons of skeletons, biology equipment.
Be feasible for the committee to have a walkthrough now that everything is.
That might be a great
I'm
idea, so
thinking
you
it's
can
really a good
understand
idea.
the
Yeah.
volume of what is there. Because it's significant.
That's fine, but we still need an inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still look at what that might run for cost.
Do we call an auction company, not auction it, but they do estate inventories all the time.
That's true.
I don't know, I mean, we'll consider whoever, I think it's a huge
One of
project.
the options for disposing of what we didn't want was potentially having an auction, so.
Correct, I mean, you know, as think about the ways to figure out how do we dispense what is there, right? You know, obviously we have county internal needs. I think, you know, that makes sense that we look at those internal needs and say, okay, what do we think is usable or what do we need? But then beyond that, what's a fair and equitable way to ensure access to all parties on that? And I think the only way we can actually do that is via auction. Because there are so many community groups that say, oh, we'd like this, we'd like this. And if you give to one and you can't give to another, or you don't, it just creates hard feelings. And even within the county structure, this is a discussion we've had. How would we decide which departments got what if there were things that they want? Well, it'd almost have to be a lottery system. You know, everybody marks something, draw it out of a hat, whoever.
Thank you forever doing that.
Well, it will. I mean, rather than what, I can already hear it. I know how these things work. If one department gets something, well, how come I wasn't given that chance? And how come they got to pick first? And, you know, so again, fair and equitable. What's the most fair and equitable way to do everything is kind of what's been in my brain this whole time as far as, you know, dispensing of the property. So, I mean, I'm more than welcoming suggestions of other ways we can approach it, but I think that's important.
From the discussion we're hearing, it sounds like we want to find out what options we would have to get an inventory.
Yep.
So if we can get some of that information and perhaps at our next meeting or another meeting anyway, whether the next one's venture, I don't think anyone wants to come and do a walkthrough with us, but we would like to have a walkthrough too, so we can see for ourselves what scale of stuff we're talking about.
I had
Mr. Manning.
a thought that, and as far as auction service, because I've always thought, let's go in the business of education. They left us behind. How much value can it really have? They didn't even want to, they already own it.
Particularly when we talk about pieces of technology, you know, okay, how old is it? Is it old? I'm guessing it's probably scrap, it's not.
MIS has been out there and there are some items that are definitely usable and
That's good.
repurposable. And then there are other things that, nope, it's really just a kind of a discard situation. So, you know, there is that. And again, there are desks that, no, you know, there are desks that nobody would probably want, but there are desks that are far better than the ones we have being utilized in our offices right now as well. So,
Right, so for the needs of the county, if it is ours, and yes, I'd like an inventory, but I don't want people that need desks and chairs end of the year trying to budget for that stuff. Is it really a big deal if we say, hey, if there's a desk or a chair or a table, grab it, photograph it, put it in our new folder that we're gonna have, you know, so these people are getting stuff that they need that's getting used.
Or even collect it on the other end, collect up a list of the needs.
Yeah,
See if we
yeah,
have
let's
a-
do that.
matches
Go out
the
there and
needs.
start picking them up. And I don't want to stall this another 2 months on people, you know, find out what their needs are. If we can go out there and take them and get them out of there for the county, we then.
but
have a
then
picture.
inventory those as well. Make sure that we're keeping a good inventory of what was
Yeah.
taken out.
It's
And
a,
I think that's fair.
yeah,
I
it's a
think that's
picture,
fine.
it's a rough description and,
Okay.
you know,
Department head A says, I need a desk of roughly this size.
yeah,
We'll see if we can find one for you.
exactly. I agree, totally agree. I think that's, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Need a couple chairs, okay, we'll get you the best ones we can.
Okay. And
So
so,
if they need a stuffed taxidermy animal, there's probably something else.
Oh, you want 3 chairs? Well, then you gotta take a taxidermy.
I
Oh, that's what you do, yeah.
Are we okay with maybe Randy and I working together to go out there and determine what would meet what the request is? Or are you in favor of me letting department heads go out there and can't pick?
I'm gonna say at this point, I think it should be you and Randy. I just don't know, I don't want that appearance that we're letting anybody from the county government go in and grab stuff. I don't think.
Nobody's cherry picking.
Okay,
Especially since that's already been.
Yeah.
okay,
Okay, sorry for people, so.
If we get a list of what their needs are, go out and see if we can meet those needs,
okay. So,
identify and tag and get.
If you find anything really cool out there where you look at, hey, who could use this?
well, and I know MIS has their eyes on some of this, again, the technology needs for better fitting some of our meeting rooms so that they could have Zoom capabilities or microphones, there are things like that.
Let's identify those.
And I think those are wonderful. So, and I haven't taken MIS out there even to walk through an inventory. They just happen to be out there because we had to do the rekey of the fobs. And there was a room across the hall. And they said, wow, look at all this stuff. Some of this is usable, some of it's not. So, you know, we can,
I think that's the best.
okay,
Sorry, course of action. And I think we should be walking through it as a committee.
Right.
yes, I agree.
And as we're going through that process, we may identify stuff that just needs to go away in the short term. Okay, that's junk. It needs to get out of here.
You may find stuff that has to.
Yeah, we did ask them to remove all the toxic chemicals and things like that, so a lot of that stuff is gone. That was an ask we had right away, just because we didn't know how to dispose of the stuff in the labs and all of those things.
You have to.
Yes,
Pay for it.
yeah, so
Not
that
cheap.
was taken care of, and even there was a large room off of the garage area that had paint and stain and whatever, and we had asked them to clean that out, and that is cleaned out as well. So at least those things, I mean, there's still less in the garage, but it's something.
Exactly.
So as far as an update on the grant, which Marty raised, as long as we're still updating here. So I got an email from the Economic Development Agency saying, you know, yep, the grant application is open, which I had to seek it out because I had found out that 4 other counties already had the grant application and it wasn't like it was just posted online. So finally got it, got in there, got to about the 3rd screen and was met with, I was very shocked and I emailed about everybody I can think of with my anger over what was there. So I want to read to you exactly what it said, because it was very disappointing. Here we go. There it is. So Senator Walwade's
Oh,
up.
what's the grant? What do they call it? Can people can look it up?
The, what is it? UW redevelopment grant. That's what it's called. So get to the 3rd page and there are a couple of different things, but they require that you attest that any and all agreements between the county and universities of Wisconsin related to the branch campus are null and void or will be as of a date certain. Then it asks for substantiating documentation such as lease termination agreement or a non-renewal notice. It further states that the applicant understands that WEDC will not be able to execute a contract for a grant without first receiving substantiating documentation. And finally, the applicant understands and agrees that as part of the consideration for WEDC providing this grant, the applicant will waive all claims that it has related to the branch campus. And so my emails to Senator Mulwig, to Hertz, Mark Line, WCA, well, I fired them off to many people, basically. And what I've said, I've quoted all of that, and I've said it appears to be outside of the legislated intent of the bill as signed by the governor. This removes any option for legal remedy for those of us who have been severely impacted by the lack of collaboration and negotiation imposed upon us by the UW systems during these closures. Are these limitations placed seemingly unilaterally by WEDC legal and binding? Question mark. Can they force us to waive our right to remedy through this application process? Any assistance and insight that you could offer would be much appreciated. So I have heard back from the legislative liaison for Senator Ballwig's office, and they want the exact language or a screenshot of what it looks like, because they want access to the entire application, and unfortunately, you can't just give them access to the application because it's specific. You have to log in, it's tied to the county. But I can at least, but I also did get a call from Andy Phillips on Friday, and he had just gotten off the phone with the governor's office. So they are working on it, because what I discovered in a call last week with Grant, Sauk, and Iowa counties is that there was a loophole where, and they basically asked the question whether or not Sauk County would be able to receive funding, because the language in there was not specific. And so it says, as vetoed, the grant could be utilized by any of the former branch campuses, former college campuses that were partnered with the university in the UW system restructuring plan approved by the Higher Learning Commission on June 28, 2018, regardless of whether the site is currently used for academic purposes. This includes the campuses in Baraboo, and then it lists a whole bunch of them. So basically it's saying you don't even have to be slotted for closure at this point, because there's a loophole in the legislation. And this came out of Senator Ballwig's office as well. So I think we're delving into some murky water here, but we are going to get to the bottom of it, because at no point in the legislative process was there ever language inserted that stated that in order to receive the grant funding, you had to waive any claim of liability towards the UW system.
And they're calling it a grant, right?
They are.
Yeah, that's why they can make grant rules. You heard
And that's what Senator Ballwig was concerned about when I spoke with her on the phone. But if they're going back to legislative intent
that, right?
here,
You can't break legislative intent with your grant rules.
exactly.
That's-
So,
Then we need the attorney to figure out what was the legislative intent. And what they-
well, and that's why we're dealing with Senator Ballwig's office.
Did you, sorry.
Steve, go ahead.
Well, now, Hertz and Markline were in the middle of this. Have they responded back yet? See, that's what I want to hear.
I haven't heard anything from them yet, but they may be working the back channels too, trying to figure out what's going on.
Understood.
But no, I have not.
You wrote them a letter.
So
Have you, so you mentioned the other counties, has anybody actually filled this out and sent it off as is?
plenty, yes,
So,
because there are very few have the negative impact that we have. You know, even on a phone call with WCA, when we were speaking with Mark O'Connell and Chair Turk was there, Andy argued that we are unique. We are different than other campuses because of the fact we're very large, we have significant need, and we are not in an area where economic development is booming like many of these other campuses that have a lot of opportunity immediately for repurposing. We're not in that same scenario. So, you know, we are unique in a number of ways. And so, you know, we've had that discussion. We had an opportunity to speak with Andy at length at WCA about some of these concerns and the overall impact, and he understands that. So he is working on our behalf, as is Mark O'Connell, as is the WCA as an organization, to try to remedy this piece, because yeah, talk about a shock. When I got to that piece of the grant application, I just about fell off my chair.
and I'd like to know who's behind that very specific language.
There are multiple people who would like to know. We were not alone in feeling that we weren't being adequately engaged with by the university system, to say the least. And when the language in this grant was revealed, multiple people said, oh, now I know why they were talking to us.
And I mean, what does that have to do with the Wisconsin economic development? You know, like
That's an.
why would that be a collaboration there?
No. No, so I am out in the pavement on this, I'm doing my due diligence, I'm reaching out, I'm following up, I'm trying to get some answers, so we'll see where we get.
Thank you, keep pushing it, that's.
Yep, I'm fighting, I'll fight the fight as long as I can, and, you know, if eventually they tell us to pound sand, well, at least we tried, and we put up a good fight.
Oh, yeah.
And then we would have to make a decision, okay, do we leave the grant or do we pursue legal
Right.
remedy?
Right,
Because it seems to be an either or choice at that point.
Options choice.
Well, I feel like if they're gonna go that far to put such specific language in a grant application. They're
well, and again,
concerned.
and, you know, there are several discussion points along what is the cost to try to, what would you gain with following legal action? What would the cost be for the benefit at the back end and those sorts of things? There's a lot to be weighed. But again, let's see where this leads us. And then I think it's a circle back and see what you all think and what your direction to be will be if we can get somewhere with this language.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Brewer, go ahead.
Is there a time on this, Candace? I mean, how long do we have to respond to the grant request?
I don't believe I saw a date. And with the closures impending, I think there's a pot of money in that. It goes, it's 20 million. So I think it's still, they know more of these are coming. That's why they set aside the 20 million. So I don't think that there's a sunset date on it.
Only 20 million. So you're saying the first 10 campuses?
Yeah, it was 20 million, wasn't it?
Maximum of 2 million, so conceivably somebody could apply for less. I don't know when they would.
Right.
So you said multiple have already put in the grant application. So then there is kind of a sunset for us because I mean, at some point there's.
Originally, there was language in the legislation that we were first in line, wasn't there?
Yes, and that got vetoed.
That got vetoed, so.
I thought that 2 million was cut and dry, that they'd already decided that, and now we gotta apply for grants.
There was always going to be an application process. That was always going to be the piece of it. At one point, they were gonna require a match, then they weren't. And, you know, then the governor came in and he vetoed some pieces of it and removed some of the restriction that was imposed. So it's been back, forth, around, down and over. But this is kind of a left field action that nobody saw coming.
Another question, Candace. First of all, I think your responses were absolutely perfect. What you read to us, that's absolutely what we have to present. But it seems to me that the Department of Economic Opportunity has been placed as a negotiator for the UW system. And $2 million is their first offer. So we ought to tell them, sorry, that isn't going to do it.
That would involve a legal remedy of some type, so that is something we'll have to consider.
We could go to the press on this.
That's another angle to look at it, is the public relations angle for sure, yes.
I was gonna say, if there's that loophole too, that like Bear Rusak is applying and all that, it's not even the first 10
No,
closing, it's the
Exactly.
first 10 period.
Potentially, and I mean, I would say, you know, this is just an initial opinion, right? So this is an opinion from a policy advisor. So I could see potential additional challenge to this. I mean, this is in no way, shape, or form guaranteeing this will happen, but that's their legal interpretation. Well, we all know how that goes. You can get 4 lawyers in a room and they all 4 have a different legal interpretation of, yeah, so, but again, it's quite interesting. And so that's why I think we stay on top of it. We keep pushing this issue and we keep asking for that clarification and then realistically, you know, at what point do we sit down as a board and you all have to decide then which direction do we really want to go? Do you want the $2 million and want to waive that, or do you want to pursue some sort of legal remedy And what would that look like and what are the potential costs to that? And I think it is a very big decision.
Keeping in mind all the guidance we had early on about potential legal avenues and likelihoods of success and the fact that UW educates the lawyers in the state, so.
Yeah.
You know, little things like that, right?
Right, I mean, and that's it. It's gonna be a big picture discussion of, okay, we were told this, and this. Is this where you wanna go?
But this betrayal, I'll call it by the state of Wisconsin, the legislature, and the Office of Economic has gotten to us by the Office of Economic Opportunity, has added another layer to this, I think.
That's certainly how it looks to us, yeah.
You know, one more, something that should be remedied.
Sometimes you have to throw away the fact that it might cost you more, but to prove a point, you gotta fight the bullet.
And I agree, we also have taxpayers,
Yeah.
money that we are considering doing that with.
Well,
And
And significant needs
Right.
across this county. that we
Another
can't-
reality would be if we decided to go that route, we probably wouldn't be alone. There are other people interested in this too, similar to the lines of thought that we have that, you know, so there might be some strength in numbers if it comes to that.
Right, yeah.
And then too, you've got more than $2 million.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And it one, plus costs.
yeah, that.
Sorry.
Any other update material for us, Candace? You said you had something on utilities?
Oh, so the utilities. So we were wondering why, you know, Melville Hall had a very high utility cost, and that seemed logical because we have people there. But the science building, that bill was equally as high. And so Randy dug in, did a little research, and figured out that the billings are broken out. 3 buildings are on the Melville Hall bill, so it would be Melville Hall, the gym, and the library. And the classroom building, the science building, and the theater are all on one bill. So the two, and then the water is billed separately. The water and sewer is billed per building. But the electric is separated into 2 different components. So that kind of sheds some light on why the costs are so significant. So the Melville Hall bill averages, you know, $2,000 to $2,200, and then the science, and the science building is last month was $2,700, this month is $2,200, but you divide that then out by 3 buildings. So $600-700 per building, which is still significant considering that 3 of them are unoccupied, and the other 3 are very minimally occupied. But it did clear up kind of some of that, because what's going on in the science building? Why is it so much? And so he went and looked and they found the meters. And so that gives us a much better understanding of how the utilities are being billed out at this point.
If that's the way they're billed, that probably gives us some clue as to how the power is distributed then too.
Correct. Which we knew they were
Yeah.
split. We just weren't, well, this pretty much solidifies that.
We don't.
And that also offers us some insight into, okay, if we close down parts of buildings, what does that look like, and what can be closed down all at once and what can't, or how would we, you know, that's another challenge is, you know, you need power to the gym and to Melville Hall, let's say, well then, what do you do with the library, I guess, you know, type of thing. So again, all things to be worked out. But that's my other update. I don't know that I have any more, because that's not enough.
And keeping in mind, we could bring a bulldozer across the bridge right now, so it's.
Correct. But that is still on schedule to be, I think, spring.
Yeah, that's what
It's
Josh
Josh.
told us at a previous meeting, that they were looking at starting construction in spring. We had initially identified ARPA money for that, and then we thought the grant could pay for it, but now with the grant being in doubt, I suppose we're back to funding it through ARPA or some other source.
Well, we'll have to take a look at that, but by then, hopefully, we'll have some decision on what we're doing with the grant.
Yep. Okay, any other updates? Oh, question, Mr. Carroll.
Did we award the contract for the bridge?
Yeah, I thought we did.
Yeah, it was approved, it was approved at county board.
Right, so I guess what I'm saying is, we gotta come up with the money somehow.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not,
It's not like we can say, let's hold off a bit, you know, he
No.
did it.
right.
Okay.
We'll need to do that one and then we'll need to figure out the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So item number 8, past reports and updates here, discussion and possible action, campus reconfiguration committee name change. Anybody got a cool acronym we could use? or-
Nothing that has UW.
Yeah. It would seem that our experience is steering us in a direction of a broader scope. While reconfiguring that property is still something we're gonna be looking at, there are also other space needs in the county and they may crisscross with the campus. And so I would assume that if we're going to update scope and name, we would have to go back for full board action on that. Because this was an ad hoc committee created by the board. So we'd have to go back to the board and get the board's okay to alter the scope of what we're looking at, is my thought.
Makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, I'm much more concerned about that than what name you give us. And so what is our charter?
Yeah.
We need to, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's written down anywhere.
Well, and I guess my thought too is this started off as a smaller committee and seems as the charge seems to have grown, is the committee size adequate for what you all think is a good representation or whatever of the
How many
whole?
members do we have?
Typically, we have, what, 7 or 9?
There are 9 total appointed.
Yeah, there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 appointed to the
Seven.
last reconfiguration.
And I think there was a question as to whether 9 would be more appropriate, given the expanded, and realistically, that's up to you all as a board.
Want to go any more than that, because then we got a quorum of the full board.
I guess I'd be curious if yes, a name change, I think is probably a good direction. I gotta ponder that. But I still think a group of 7, do we add in some public? Put up some public input.
I was thinking, I shouldn't be talking about it.
Well,
We're here for
I
more
just-
meetings than a lot of people are. So
yeah, please.
said you're here for more meetings than a lot of people are.
Well, the whole thing is reconfiguration, and not just the campus, but the service. Why not just drop campus and just the reconfiguration committee? That's what,
Property.
or, yeah, because that's the whole purpose of the committee.
I guess I'd like to see a little more narrow than just reconfiguration. I think people could present that. as-
Right. Yeah, you probably need some kind of qualifier.
Yeah.
Probably need to take this to the next board meeting
Yeah.
for scope, because I think even before we get into space needs and everything, I mean, because that's already beyond what our initial scope was, in my opinion. Because we initially were just dealing with the campus and UW, so I think we should probably address that.
Okay.
Um,
Probably wise. Yeah.
So I don't know, I mean, if we're doing that, we need to present them, this is what we think the scope should be. So in which case, what we want as the scope.
I think we were tasked with that at least.
What?
To bring them those options.
Yeah.
As a committee to bring that to them.
To
And
bring what action?
to bring in, what is our scope? I mean, this is what we feel it is.
Yeah.
And the committee has to firm that.
Steve, go ahead.
Which leads me to another question. You know, we're talking about buildings and space needs, but we got 130 acres. And at some point, we need to bring that up and look at the potential development piece and whether that's in our scope. And if it is, when do we start working on that and possibly have a parallel effort? And that's gonna be a big deal.
Yep.
At the risk of sounding like an absolute broken record, because I feel like I bring this up all the time, but I feel like this winds up affecting whatever our updated or strategic plan is going forward, because they all go in sync with each other. So I don't know, I mean, when we initially came up with a strategic plan, we had an ad hoc committee specifically for that. So I don't know if we want to broaden that. I just feel like when you start pulling at one thread here, you're really looking at a bigger picture. So do we need to broaden that scope to, we need the strategic plan updated anyways? It seems like, what is that falling on right now? Finance and executive? that committee has a lot to deal with already. And I'm not saying necessarily take it away, but I'm saying if this is gonna factor into these discussions, maybe it needs to be a separate discussion.
If I may.
Yeah.
So I had a consult with a company, Derek, what, Monday? We talked to them?
For the culture?
Yeah, well, the action items,
Yes.
okay. So given recent events, rather than do disc training, my idea kind of shifted. We were going to do disc training, which is, for the board and department heads, so that everyone realized, how to work together and where were our strengths, where were our weaknesses, those
For those who don't know, DISC is like a personality type thing,
Yeah.
how you interact with other people.
But given recent events and the way things have shaped up, I thought it would be better suited, and I discussed this with others, to bring someone in to do kind of a facilitated dialogue and to start with department heads and the county board and develop what is our mission statement, what is our vision statement, what are our top 10 goals, what do we want to work toward, and what are our action items. So not a full strategic plan revamp, because I think that's a bigger undertaking and we need to do that, but this would give us then our overall direction. And then from that, then we could integrate then county-wide meetings and, work on the workplace culture pieces and the goal setting and all of that countywide. So that quote and that plan should be coming back to me on Monday, because we had those dollars set aside for disc training already. It's just repurposing some of those dollars that we had set aside to really give us a strategic direction for the near future, given the fact that I think the scope, the strategic plan that we have is pretty much all accomplished.
Yeah.
There's very little left.
Amazing. We put that together. I never thought that would happen.
So we've accomplished a lot in the past year and few months, but this will give us more of an imminent, okay, here's where we want all of you, meaning me and department heads and employees. These are our priorities. This is what we want you working towards.
Well, that would honestly work well, because if that can come back and then inform whatever this, because they have to work together. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking as far as scope of this committee,
Yep.
would we be working in tandem with that? Would we be fine tuning that? I don't know, but at some point they have to work together, because we can't just be like, oh, well, this is what we decided we need to do with space needs, and it doesn't fit with the strategic
Right.
plan.
Correct.
So,
So that piece is on the horizon. I would like, and I told them I would like to see this done in November,
okay,
just because we're starting a new year.
yeah,
Let's have our goals set. Let's figure out where we want to go, what do we want to do, and how do we want to move.
okay.
So that is,
So how do we present this then to the board?
Well, some of the conversation we've had already, we've noticed the broadening of scope. We've noticed the need to plan for more than just a campus as far as facilities. We're talking HHS, we're talking courthouse, we're talking all these other things that need to be part of that. I think we bring that back to the board and say, the ad hoc committee for campus reconfiguration, as it was originally created, the purpose has gotten bigger. And so we feel that we need to come back to the board and ask you, okay, are you giving this ad hoc committee a bigger purpose? Do we need to expand the membership on that committee? Do we need to approve a new name for it, facilities reconfiguration committee or something like that, rather than campus reconfiguration committee, because we're addressing more than just the campus. Anything in there I missed? Or do you think those are the high points that we want to look at?
The only other piece I can think of is possibly whether we want to bring in a perspective from the city or some other public entity.
As we move forward with this plan, that's definitely something we'll want to think about, is looking at our partnerships, whether it's city, school district, just the public in general.
Right.
How do we engage and involve?
Like the jail discussion, there's multiple pieces to
Oh, yeah.
this. So I don't know, name is minor, as we've said.
Yes.
Yes.
I feel like even, none of those names, sound like, I don't know how you read it.
There's no name that's
Future
gonna-
planning, I don't know, like, yeah.
Facilities.
That's just facility. Anyways,
Well, it isn't just facilities, but the decisions we're looking at the moment are facility related, but they need to be informed by other things too. And obviously, it's gonna have a huge financial price tag potentially, so.
And that in and of itself is problematic, considering our financial position and what we are able to do within the constraints that we have. And then then it's developing a priority list, really. Okay, do we have to do this in phases? And if we're gonna do it in phases, what does that look like? And
Yep.
so, I mean, there are so many pieces to this. I mean, this is a massive multi-year undertaking.
Yep.
It's not going to be a simple, oh, we're just gonna do this and all's gonna be well.
We're not gonna spend $10 million, build one building, and we solve all our problems.
Which at that point then, is it, I mean, I don't remember the definitions for the ad hoc and the subcommittee and all of that, but I mean, we're talking, this could be going on for a long
This,
time.
yes, this is something that
Seems
will,
beyond ad hoc, in my opinion.
I think it would still be technically an ad hoc because it's outside of our standing committee structure.
Yeah, that's right.
But it would be a long-term committee, for sure.
In theory, it has an endpoint, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, let's hope so.
Oh, my gosh.
Maybe
now-
it may outlive us, but you know.
That's, yeah, none of us may still be on the board when it reaches that end, but
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Brewer.
maybe this should become a standing committee. And I'm trying to think of how it would fit in, and I'm thinking of Public Works. Well, Public Works can't take on anymore. We could call it the County Land and Facilities Committee or something, because this is so important that, and it will be ongoing for some time.
That's, we could consider that. I don't know exactly what we'd call it to differentiate responsibilities. Public Works will still have ongoing maintenance responsibilities for everything. We're not looking to do that. This is much more about planning and future uses and making, capital decisions versus.
Right. And I still want to see a park created up on top of the hill, so
What was that, Marty?
I would still like to see the top of the hill where the walking paths are made into a county park.
But that's Public Works. All right, and then again, all potential uses are things we will have to look at.
Yep. Absolutely.
So do we want to bring a specific proposal to the full board? Do we want to hold off till we have a better handle on what our specific proposal might be? What do you think?
Sorry, what was that?
I said, do we want to bring a specific proposal to the next full board meeting? Do we want to hold off till we have more specifics to bring the board? What do you think?
As far as this.
As far as the name change, the ad hoc, the scope of the whole thing we were just talking about.
I would.
What if we, see how things go with the next venture presentation? That's where they start getting into the next step a little bit.
We could certainly do that. But he says we have to do it right away, so.
Is this something that we bring up to county board and say, hey, we've met, these are some decisions we've come up with, some of the things we need to make decisions on. One of them's a name change, one of them we're waiting for, so at least the board knows.
Yes, we should definitely get.
And
more
everybody else in the committee knows, didn't sit here and have coffee. Done. It's here.
I can do the report for that as the chair of the committee, sure.
It is, we can
And
add-
coffee at the next meeting might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, it's not good. I like,
I just wanted cider donuts.
yes.
Oh.
And not apple. Maybe you could solicit input, like what, as far as their thoughts on input, what the committee structure should look like, name. That way they have the time between then and the next time to
Get
bring
thinking
back
about
some
it.
ideas.
Certainly
I'm sure
relay
there'll
their
be
feedback to
thoughts.
us on the committee. Okay.
Because like we've been saying over and over, this is a lot bigger than what we initially started out to be. It's going to be long term.
Can I add one more thing? After I was sitting here thinking about this reconfiguration, with campus in front of it, it made sense. Because then everybody gets pinpointed, you're trying to figure out. But I can just hear people calling the radio station and saying, what are they trying to reconfigure? Are they trying to reconfigure the administration? So you need to be specific, otherwise I can hear John Doe in the public saying, Now what are they trying to change?
Which is, I actually liked Marty, he said county land and facility, I mean, something like that, where it's very specific, you know, land, facilities, future use, whatever it might be.
And maybe this is a phased approach, where you add, you have campus reconfiguration, now it's campus slash land use
Just keep adding
configuration.
stuff.
Well, and then, but you do that for a while so people know, and then you drop off what's no longer necessary.
Facilities or infrastructure, those are the things we have to.
It's the engineer.
Just.
Yeah, I think those are all good thoughts. If we made it a facilities planning committee, and it's clear its goal is planning, it's not maintenance, it's not
Facilities,
county facilities,
maybe.
Yeah, simple.
something like that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, I think,
Yes.
sorry, I'm gonna go crazy, yes. Yeah, just listening to all this, I think this is a huge thing. I think this is much greater than this little agenda item. What are we gonna call ourselves? Because obviously there's an identity crisis here. That we need to figure out. So we needed to determine that first. And so I feel like going to the board to even say, we're not really sure what this committee is gonna do.
Oh, no.
The board's gonna say, yeah, figure it out and come back. So I think we all just take a step back and figure out, okay, what should this committee do? Because I think there is value in having a very specific purpose for the problems at hand right now. What do we do with all those buildings? So this committee has to figure that out, or a committee has to determine that. And then once that step is determined, then move into, well, then how do we long-term plan for facilities and infrastructure, which I like that stuff much better. But there are decisions that are going to have to be made regarding these properties right now that can't maybe necessarily wait for a 5-year plan built in somewhere else. We're going to have to make decisions, like Administrator Pesh just said, winterization. That has to happen. So to meet and rename the committee and try to work this into a long-term plan, I think it goes without saying that we would want to, whenever we're doing anything with any of those buildings, always keep a long-term plan of the county in mind. But I don't want that to get lost in this big shuffle of, oh, well, we still have things that we're gonna have to do, decisions that are gonna have to be made that may be much more, sooner than later. So I don't want to lose sight of that. And I feel like if we have a focus, I think Bob, your idea is good. I don't want to put a slash after every committee.
Right.
That's going to be awful. But committees evolve. So maybe the first task is this refigure, whatever this committee is going to be called for now. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we have those buildings. We have to think about that. And I don't want it to get lost in long-term planning for 10 years when, oh yeah, we're going to move a desk from the building. If we're not sure how we're going to remove a desk from the building, then how are we going to long-term plan? So just my outside perspective is we're going to have all these meetings and stuff. There are things that are going to have to be done that we're going to have to do much quicker. But I think this is very, very, very large compared to what we
It would seem in the near term, remaining campus reconfiguration committee is appropriate because we've got buildings to figure out what to do with. We've got stuff to clean out of buildings. We've got a bridge to build. We've got, that stuff, which could vary. But as we start considering those bigger questions, that's when we'll need to think seriously about what should this committee be called moving forward, bringing it back to the board and getting that decision as a board. Okay, it's in 7 people, it's 9 people, whatever, and give it a defined task moving forward. Yes.
Here, let's again not forget that we have 130 acres, and it could be possible that if you combine the right group of projects, then it makes other things possible we couldn't afford otherwise. And so we're more than just the buildings, essentially. So that, like I say, that whole possible development or repurposing of these buildings for something we don't even think about right now needs to be part of the mix.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, I agree with you, Derek. There are these immediate decisions we have to make, but I think that that's just gonna keep coming and being on the forefront of our agenda. But we do need to revisit that scope because we can't even make, beyond those immediate decisions of like winterization, et cetera. Anything other than that has gotta be informed by, what are we doing broader? And so I just think we're already getting to that point where we need to have that broader perspective of that.
And
So,
is that what we're having Venture gonna do, help us out with?
yeah, I mean,
The
are they
space
able?
needs piece, yes.
Yeah,
Like I said, that's pretty much ready to go. And then they have ideas and they have thoughts on, do we build, a jail and a court room? Do we build a you know, we refurbish this and keep people here, and what do we do with this building? I mean, they have variations of recommendations and ideas and thoughts. It's then going to be informed and developed by what you all think, and again, what can be logically and reasonably afford. I mean, a new jail is $45 million. We don't have $45 million. We can't even borrow $45 million in the state that we're in right now. So, you know, there are certain things that we are going to be unable to do unless other very large decisions are made. So this is yes, it's a massive undertaking.
That decision on our focus and our priorities will drive all future decisions we make about what the property out there becomes, whether buildings are standing or not, and things like that. We're not at that point yet, but we're gonna start bumping up against it as we have those discussions eventually. Yes.
The one more question I had. I've heard anecdotally, there's been people that have come, or organizations that have contacted us. Maybe no, is that a fact? In other words, interest in campus buildings?
I have a list of probably 3 or 4 people that over the months have reached out saying that they would have potential interest in specific buildings. But again, knowing what we now know, that's then a question as far as whose responsibility is it then to get that building up to code before we can do something with it or allow someone else to inhabit it. And those sorts of things. So yes, do we have some people that have expressed interest in potentially utilizing certain buildings? We do, but is that realistic based on what we now know? And that was my response to them, was always, we're in the middle of this assessment. When and if we decide to move forward and there are next steps for proposals, we will reach out to you and let you know that. So that's why I do have a folder with interested parties. I've got their emails, I've got their information, and, depending on what the decision would be.
And again, our priorities will drive that. It's our priority purely financial, so whoever has the most money gets what they want. Or will our priority be what benefits the greater community, so maybe it's a partnership with a school district or something, whatever we decide that driving factor will be, we'll have a lot of consideration as to what kind of proposals we would entertain realistically. I don't think there's the multi-billionaire out there waiting to just take it off our hands and make it into a resort, but.
Well, and right, if you'll remember, originally, we thought, we would just develop a formal proposal process and, then we could decide what made sense, but now that we kind of know that these buildings need a ton of work and probably wouldn't be up to code at this point, that leads to more questions then. What could we reasonably do with them? What is our responsibility prior to being able to rent or lease or sell and I don't know any of those answers.
And what do the county's needs mean as far as how we consider using those?
Yeah.
I guess that's the question there, not knowing what people are wanting to use the buildings for. It might be that they're functional for them and the county can bring in $2,000 a month, at least to cover half of our utilities for 6 months or something. I don't know. Just trying to offset as much weight as we can.
Right. Steve, go ahead.
So this is kind of why I was saying, maybe we hold off a bit, go to the board.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna hear some of this kind of stuff from Venture at our next meeting, which is when.
That's the next agenda item, setting our next meeting date. And it sounds like we have 2 different things we want to accomplish. I don't know if we can do both of those in one meeting or not. We talked about a walkthrough and meeting with vendor.
Why we couldn't do a walkthrough and meet them out there?
If they want to show us the tool and everything, though, we're gonna need the tech. And I don't know if he was planning on being on site or just being virtual. I'll
Find that
clarify.
out, 'cause,
I'll clarify with them. Because a walkthrough wouldn't be bad as far as they could then point out or answer questions too, that we wouldn't be able to answer. So if you want to do both.
Explore that possibility and find a date that works to be able to do that. And if we're not able to do it all in one meeting, then we'll have to figure out a couple meeting dates to accomplish. Because we have more than just Venture's purpose for that walkthrough. We also wanted to see the stuff that's out there.
Right.
And so that one should probably happen fairly soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we just meet in between now and then if we want to walk through and see what's there.
You guys said it already.
But we have.
And if we did that, that doesn't necessarily have to happen.
I'm fine, just let me come on.
Sure.
Yeah, I was hoping to have them have another meeting. It's just because November is right around the corner.
Yep.
And it's gonna start getting cold.
Yes,
I don't think we can put
Right.
off that decision.
right.
So I was looking somewhere in the 3rd to 4th week of October with my thought. So based on that, looking at, we're having the county board meeting on the 29th of October.
Wait,
Oh,
So-
not the 15th?
No.
no, it is the 29th because it's our annual budget
annual
meeting.
budget.
And typically we've done it on the fourth Tuesday, but there is a fifth Tuesday this year. And that actual week will give some extra time for budget preparation and finalizing things, so we opted to go with the 29th.
So October 22nd, which is a Tuesday, is open.
Community Adventure.
So I could propose that.
Yeah.
Or propose, let's see, the 24th, which is a Thursday. So I could see if they would be available either of those 2 days or at worst, the 31st of October. Oh, it's Halloween, never mind, sorry. Halloween, didn't even think about that.
Apparently be a lot more tricks than treats.
I mean, I guess we could throw out the 17th as well, but that's
Yeah.
pretty quick. All right.
17th, 22nd.
Okay, I will throw those 3 dates out there.
Wait, the
What?
17th?
Potentially.
Potentially,
And this will be an evening meeting with Venture.
correct. And
Okay.
would you want to do, if you want to do the walkthrough,
For 22nd or 24th.
what time would you want to do the walkthrough?
If we're gonna try to do it in conjunction with Venture, how early can folks be available to do the walkthrough?
Because it would be nice to do it in daylight.
Yeah.
5,
5 o'clock with the walk.
earlier than 5.
And yes, Steve.
I'm just, for me, I don't even care if I do a walkthrough. I just want the inventory.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I don't feel a pressing need. If you guys think that we really need to do that, fine, but we had that first walkthrough.
We did, but we weren't like, we just want to get a sense of the volume of stuff we're dealing with. That was what we talked about when we brought walkthrough up at this meeting. Was, you
Well,
know,
maybe,
get us-
I mean, maybe we don't even need a special meeting for that. Maybe we just, a few of the committee members who want to go through and get a picture of it can do that. Just Less than
notice
four.
there's a potential forum, but not anything direction.
Or I mean, if, as long as there's
It's
not a
just
forum
two
of
of
you.
you, if
Right.
Bob want to go and Dave want to go, then we
yeah.
can set it up and
Right.
let's go.
Okay,
Maybe that's the way to do it. We
I
can
would
call
be
it
happy
one-
to allow you guys to do that. Thank you.
let's make a plan for that, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we'll just have whatever this meeting, do we want this next meeting at 5 rather than 6, just because of the length of, I anticipate the meeting being?
Now, okay, so now we're not talking about the work walkthrough,
No,
we're talking about the bench. Okay, if we're gonna do it at 5, then can we do it on the 22nd or 24th, preferably, not the 17th?
Okay. Otherwise, would 6 be better on the 17th? Or it's just the 17th now?
Yeah, it's just not a great day. I can make it work if we have to. It's not a big deal. Or just,
I'll try with those two and then see what.
yeah, I mean,
Do.
yeah, if we have to go with the 17th, just stick with the 5. It's not gonna make a difference for what I have to miss, so.
Okay,
All right.
this-
With that, we're down to correspondence. Committee of correspondence.
None received by.
Received other than what we talked about in our updates, so. Future agenda items. I think we've been talking a lot about that. Yes, we do. Anything else that we haven't delineated yet that you want to see for sure on a future agenda?
Watch, he'll unfurl a list.
Enroll.
So, Mr. Chair, can I just verify, we have a venture walkthrough, do you want?
Yeah, well, we have,
No,
Or, I mean, for
Venture
future agenda items?
yeah,
What,
budget presentation.
can you just clarify what you'd like on the agenda for those, to make sure I got them?
This, I think it would be, what, detailed presentation from Venture or something like
Yeah.
that? That's what we call that.
Okay.
Give them specifics, because Steve had some.
Yeah.
specifics.
Do we need a budget for this committee? I mean, that seems like a lot of question, but we've already triggered some things that are gonna cost some money, or potentially have.
You mean like possibly getting an inventory, because we'd have to take that back to board anyways.
Yeah, we have no authority.
I mean, anything that we would decide that we have to spend money on is gonna have to go through.
Or maybe I didn't say it right. Should we identify some costs we see coming up that the board needs to know about? Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Such as,
So like this cost to get an inventory done, or things like that.
I think until we know what that cost looks like, we
yeah,
can't
we
really
don't even
propose
know.
it.
And that's why I'm saying next meeting.
Okay, well, bringing that back is something for the next meeting, is the information
Yeah.
on
So we're gonna look at-
civic inventory. And then we can certainly determine if we need to go to the board, ask the money to buy it. Pay for it.
For this meeting, so that we can-
I think it was Ben's brainstorming down about possible development there. And we wanna, Jason or somebody come and say what they had thought might happen, or is that maybe too early on?
I think that might be a little early, it's just my personal thought. But, you know, having that conversation with those partners is definitely something important we'll want to do. I don't know.
Maybe not on next month's
No.
agenda.
But a follow-up on the filing system stuff we were asking about, of organizing the materials in a folder. Follow up on that next meeting.
And then obviously an update on the grant issue.
Yes.
Yeah, if I get any updates, I will definitely share it out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've gotta figure out where we're going with that relatively.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Brewer, go ahead.
Other than the update, I mean, we want to be able to decide, are we going to take further action, legal remedies? I think that needs to be part of that agenda discussion.
I don't think we'd be in a position next meeting to make that decision, but at the point we are, then I think we want to take that to the full board.
People are going to be asking us,
Closed
David,
session, for sure, yeah.
people are going to be asking us, and rightly so, how come you're not taking the $2 million? What's the matter with you people? So.
Let them
I'd like
talk.
to be-
Well, anyway.
They've been asking us variations of when are we gonna sue the state for a long time too, so.
Perhaps based on what happens between now and the next meeting, we might have to have a closed session
Yeah.
or discussion and possible action kind of agenda item.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think that's fair.
Consulting legal counsel.
Yeah.
All right, any other topics?
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Frank. Second by Mr. Carroll. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Aye.